Building a base in Dune is fun. It's really fun. It's maybe too fun. It's time consuming. And in this video today, I want to help you break out of making a Borg cube in the middle of the desert of Arrakis by giving you some kind of tips and tricks of things that I've done to really help break a lot of the monotony of my base and giving you, again, those tips to help you make your base flourish. Now, in my typical fashion of running the knowledge in my videos, that's really kind of hard in a format like this video where I'm going to be talking more about how to take a look at your base and how to break things apart. But what I would say from like a too long didn't watch perspective is really just simply looking at your base. You're saying, hey, okay, it's a square. How can I break the edges of this square up, and how can I move around more and more of it? And you really kind of realize that by doing that in the middle of your video, that really you only need like one room's worth of fabricators and refineries to be pretty much set in your base. After that, the rest of it is really kind of up to you. So as a too long didn't watch for this video, I would tell you, if you're struggling with looking at just your Borg cube of a base, I would tell you to simply try to break it into sections. Rather than looking at it as one big square, try to break it into quadrants and then fill those quadrants. Either you go half of it or 1/4 of it and have, okay, that 1/4, it's got a bunch of stairwells that now go up throughout the whole entire base. Or 1/2 of it, now it has an overpass like this, an overhang like this, that's gonna look down on the level above it. You can do a lot of really little things to break up your base, and I'm gonna be showing you how to do those here today. Now you can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most by using the chapters in both the timeline and the description, because we will be talking about places to make your base and what have you. I guess the biggest tip I would tell you would be to place your fief, then place 4 foundation blocks above it, then delete your fief and place your fief on top of that foundation block. Then you'll get all the room of the fief. You won't have any of it sunk down into the floor that you can't take advantage of. But that's, I guess, the too long didn't watch this entire video. I know those are usually way more helpful, but again, in this format, it's a little bit tricky. So if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can jump ahead, like I said, to any part using the chapters below the timeline in the description. And if you are heading out, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those things helps me in a huge way. Let's get started here on making you a better base in Dune Awakening. So first things first, when it comes to deciding on your base or building your base, you have to find a location. And before we actually jump into the actual ground of making that location, let's take a look at the map. Oh, let's press this button, then this button, then look at the map. So my base is right here next to the outpost or the trade post of Crossroads. And this for me was where I wanted to make my base. So you have to decide for yourself, where do you want to make your base? If you're just starting off, you're right here. Don't make a permanent base down there. Make it, if anything, over in this region at the very least. In fact, I would say honestly, maybe over here is a pretty good bet, because that gives you a nice central location for everything. But after that, you kind of have to determine where you want to place your base based off of where you are in the game. My second base after the initial portion of the game was right here. And I moved the base from that location to this one, and I won't be moving it again because the rest of the end game, quote unquote, as far as Haga Basin is concerned, is over here and down over here. So if you were to create a base in Anvil, or I guess Western Vermilius Gap over in this region, you would have a base that would be able to go into this region, which is the majority of the mid game, and then go into this region, which is the majority of the end game. And you have to really consider the resource that you're taking a look at for your primary tech level. So if I hover over here to the eastern shield wall, you can see right there, these resources that are in the number 3 category, that is showing me that aluminum, which is the very first one on that list, is right there. Perfect. I need aluminum because I'm now at a point where I need aluminum. Or down here, jasmium is on this list. Cool. Well, jasmium is what I need to make durlinium, which is the second to last progression of tiers, tier 5. So before you actually go to make your base, just determine the actual region. Not necessarily like, hey, I want my base right here. You don't know what that region, that this spot looks like, so maybe you don't say that. You just, I need it over here because this is the resources I want to leverage. My buddy has his base right here, and this allows him to take advantage of plenty of aluminum over here and then go through here for any of the etherite to make cobalt paste. So he's really well positioned and he's close to an edge. That's another thing I do want to bring up here is if you place your base close to an edge, here's another one of my friends, oh God, who has placed his base right over here. If my base is over here and his base is over there, we both leverage the same exact resources. And as far as the time it takes to get to anything of worth when it comes to like quests, it's pretty quick and easy. But if he wants to leave and go to Harko Village or to Arrakis, all he's got to do is go right there. And when he zones back in, he zones in. If you come in from the northern top part, he always zones in like right there. Everyone does. So it's like the best base in the game almost. So just kind of know those things, right? If you're going to say maybe make a base over here or over here, place yourself in a region that then allows you to leave this location and know that if he wants to, this person, for example, wants to go to Sheol, which is all the way down here, he can just simply leave the map through the north entrance and then join the map on any of the entrances on the west side. So he could come in at 9 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and be around this area of Sheol. So he has access to this if he so needs to. So decide for yourself which region you want to determine, and then we'll talk about how or what it kind of takes to place that first fief for your base. Before we actually show off some base building, let's talk very quickly about buying decorations. Now, this is going to depend upon your faction. If you're Atreides, you'd go to Arrakis and go to the Atreides vendor. If you're Harko, you'd go to the Harko village. If you're Harkonnen, you go to the Harko village and then talk to the Harko vendor. Now, there are two kind of wild cards here. For one, you have a base vendor. Here's the one in Arrakis. You'll talk to the base vendor. The base vendor will have more of the exact same offerings that are at the trade posts. For example, this is at a trade post, this is at a trade post, and I believe both of these are at trade posts. But the dining room small decoration set, the small decoration for office, and then the bedroom small deco, those are only available on this vendor. So for example, we're going to buy one of these. This gives me the books. I'll show you why I like the books in a bit. And that goes ahead and places it. Now, the other wild card is that Arrakis has a vendor that will offer you Harko stuff, and Harko Village has a vendor that will offer you Atreides stuff. So for the Harkonnen Village, it's the scrap vendor now or something like that. They just changed it. It used to be the weapons vendor. But if you talk to this guy right here in Arrakis, go I like to trade, he will offer you a number of mercenary, some Atreides deserter stuff, as well as construction things for Harkonnen. You can even buy the entire build set. Just know it's double the cost. So if I were Harkonnen, this would only be 80K, but through this vendor, it's 160. So that's why some of this I'm just not even going to be bothering with. But for example, here, maybe I want this bedroom furniture set with a bunch of different drawers, a bunch of different wardrobes. This might be a level of customization that you really don't want. It might be the one that you really want to lean into. So it's going to be up to you. Like I'm, for example, going to buy this office furniture set because I want to see these wall arts, these wall partitions and stuff like that. So you'd buy that and add that into your list. So just make sure you buy any furniture or any decoration set that you do want, especially any building set. I particularly really enjoy both the Harkonnen and the Atreides building sets for different reasons. All right, we've got our location. We've got some furniture. Let's set up our first base. So we're going to come into the building menu here, and I want to show you these big red boxes everywhere because they're really important. You can make the mistake of building too close to those and completely ruin your expansions. This is something that I've had to deal with in my previous base where I put myself, I didn't even realize it. I was just a little bit too far or too close to one of these boxes, and I couldn't place a base where I wanted to. You can see it says too close to a building zone. I'm sorry, I placed the base, but I ended up having to move it because I couldn't expand. So we have two kind of fiefs, the sub fief and then the advanced sub fief. You can see they are both different sizes. So if I were just to place this and move over here, you can see how big that just a normal sub fief is. And I delete that and we go to the advanced sub fief. You can see how big this one is. And I'm probably too close to my current base to show this off here. Yeah. It's kind of wonkopotamus. But this is a much bigger, there we go. base. Oh, that's just the other one. A much bigger one. So you want to make sure you're placing an advanced subfief. So anytime you do any extensions or expansions, it will expand the subfief, the advanced subfief console. If you were to do, say, just this normal generic one, it would only expand this one. So it's a much smaller radius. So if you take a look, if I place this, you can see the size of this by looking up. Yeah, if I go over here, you can see a little bit better. You can see how how big this is by looking up. It's not that big, right? But if I look at this, which is my base, those are all from advanced subfief consoles. So we have a much larger base to take advantage of, and we've placed a lot of extensions, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But once we've placed our subfief, we want to do that trick I was talking about in the intro. So you can see that the fief, let's go ahead and demolish this again real quick. You can see that the fief, if I move it onto like something really tall, it still has plenty of room. You can see there's plenty of X and Y and Z axis to move around. If I were to place this up here, you can see that I've got, still it's going to be touching the ground. So you can see that that's what we want to try to take advantage of without having to use a rock and maybe losing part of that base into the rock, whatever it is. So we'll demolish that, build this over here, place this fief, and that's good to go. Then we're going to switch over to our foundations. And what we want to do here is you want to place 1, 2, 3, and 4 up. This allows us to then place this subfief at the top of that. So we'll build these. I'm going to have to go get some more plastone. So we're going to do a hard cut here real quick. Be right back. So with all 4 of those built, we have this all the way like that. Now you can't just simply move this. If you move it up there, it's not how that works. You have to come all the way up here and demolish that. Then build another one right here. Now you can see we have pretty much everything we want from a Z-axis, right? We're just a little shallow right here, so maybe we don't go too far up, but you do all this stuff right now, because if you do it later, then you're going to see like, oh man, I could have gone up a little bit more. I should have gone left or right. You just spend all the time you need to right now, deleting and reestablishing and deleting and reestablishing your subfief. Because if you do that, it's going to piss you. If you don't do that, it's going to piss you off right here. So if I look over here, these in fact actually can't be built because it's just a little too high because of the slope of this ground. You can see that the subfief comes all the way around, but that's fine. You know, we could still just do this and kind of create around it. Just have to worry about stability, which we'll talk about in its own section. But that's something that you want to do to start off. You want to make sure you're placing that subfief up so you get the most out of the Z-axis of your base, that vertical horizon of your base, as much as you can without having to use an expander. If you want to play it safe, just use 3 rather than 4. That way you can really guarantee yourself a nice situation. But let's now talk about placing all this stuff together. So I've gone ahead and moved my feet back around, and I just placed it all the way down here at the floor just to kind of get into the video here. So let's talk about planning things out. And you can just go ahead and slap a cube up. If you're coming into this video and you already have a base and you're looking to make a base better, you don't need to really worry about this. What I'm going to be talking about here is just kind of trying to maximize your initial fief. When you expand it, I mean, look how many fiefs I have over here. I'm not using every single inch of the area, right? I'm just using portions of it. Like this, almost this entire expansion right there is wasted on this location because I'm not actually utilizing it. This one as well, too. Like this is just my garage. It's really only the back end of that fief, not even vertical. I'm not even using much verticality on that. The reason that I actually used the vertical extenders was to go down onto the cliff face, which I'll show in a bit. But you could get a good feeling for, you can really kind of measure this out by placing a foundation here in the center, and you can see what happens. You're gonna go, oh, cool. I can't actually expand out anymore. So you work yourself around this by demolishing, and placing your very first one as close to an edge as you can. And you want to try to make sure, like, that's exactly my point, make sure you're placing it as close to the edge as you can and not doing what I did, right? The perspective messes it up. So you can place from outside of your land claim. Your character, once you've actually kind of placed this down, can get kind of a little saucy with this. let's get right around there. I have the wrong dispenser on here and it's gonna just die in the middle of this video. Cool. It's really tricky. I'm just gonna, that'll just do for now. So this allows you to maximize basically the X and Y of this location, right? Because I think it's something like 10, it's like 10 across, like 10 width of cube worth. And then I think it's like 13 up and down or something like that was the total fief range. So this is super quote unquote min-maxy of this region. You don't really need to do this, but I find it gives you an idea of where you're going to lie, because if you do something like this, build this out, you now have at least an area you can snap off of. If I were to do it over here and go like this, you can see, right? I can't. I'm going to run out of room because I placed kind of a little funky. So it's going to have me go off the edge here. So you can use this as a kind of a base measurement, as a cornerstone, quite literally, to build off of and judge the rest of your building off of, anchoring it to one corner. Because if you do this on just one corner, the rest of the corners are going to snap around it. Like if you were to go, okay, so this is how I'm going to do this. Let's just demolish those real quick. So cool. This is done over there. This is done right here. Well, now I'm going to drop one more up. And this is my actual foundation. And everything is really going to be based off of this foundation right here. And this is where my house is. By all means, go for it. Or just build in the center. The reason I'm talking about it is so that you have a sense of how you can measure out your house before even starting. But now let's just make a basic box. So here we go. Instead of a box, I've made a rectangle, but still, you understand my point. Now, when it comes to making your base, I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people do is just go ahead and place blocks ad infinitum to the height that they want, and they just kind of go crazy. If you do that, you then cut out possible real estate. So let's demolish that. And let's look at, this is just our base foundation. We need to not touch these anymore. We need to now switch over to walls, and we'll just go ahead and make some walls. And I'm just going to make a real basic situation here with the walls. There we go. There we go. So here's just a basic situation, right? And if we want, we could snap some steps right here, just making a real basic second story for us to play around with. And don't worry about the facings. I'm just kind of doing this quickly for the video. As I'm doing, I'm like cringing in the back of my head, because as you can see, I'm pretty anal retentive about it, making my house a home, one step at a time. And we'll make a little, not going to build all this out, but just to pop something here so I can walk over this area. So this is probably your basic structure for a home, right? It's the board cube. It's the big old rectangle that extends into the sky, and you have layers to it. And you know, if we're being totally honest, that is very loreful for Dune. So don't worry necessarily like, ah, man, my base doesn't look like this dude's base, which that guy's base looks awesome, by the way, or this guy's base, or this guy's base, or my awesome like Arrakis Jedi temple that I've made. You don't need to worry about those things. Worry about what, if it's fun for you to make first. And I think that the reason, or the way I kind of look at this right now is, let's determine how we want to enter and exit the base. Well, this is the edge of the territory. And yeah, sure, we can exit and enter from here, but what we need to really be mindful of, and I deliberately did this, since we're on the edge, this makes it so that any kind of balcony I want to make over here, any kind of walkway up here, I just can't do it. So this at the same time gives us a base of measurement. Now that I've created the actual foundation off of this simple cornerstone, everything from this point I know will squarely fit within this entire range. So I don't need this anymore. I could completely delete this row and start to build this out for an actual ramp into the base, whatever it is. But just in case I mess up in the recording of this video and I have to redo it, let's go ahead and say this is our opening. Okay, let's go ahead and pop that out. Now we can go ahead and just slap a door in here and we're kind of good to go, right? Like there it is. And then you put rooftop over this. Well, probably not rooftop, I want floor. And I'll show you why in a second, I suppose. Oh, it doesn't really matter. I thought the rooftop had a different bottom to this. And just to kind of get like a general skeleton here, get a piece picker and do that. So here is our initial foray into our base. I'm trying to connect it to a structure. You're just not letting connect. Thank you. No. Hey, look, the door all of a sudden is over there. That's wild. Who would have thought I would have moved like that? That's crazy. Build right there. So here's your real basic base, right? Now, once you kind of establish those things, you can kind of see for yourself the flow of how this house is going to look. And I think this is when you can kind of start to break the cube, right? This is when you can really start to have some fun. And if the flow of this base is, we enter from this region, and we come in, and what's the first thing you're going to want to do when you come out from being in the deep desert and from questing, whatever it is, you want to dump things off. So maybe it makes sense that like right here is a place I can step into that's just like a storage location. I'm not going to be able to build anymore because I'm out of plastone, but I jump into here and boom, I can just quickly unload everything I've got. Great. And then I get to go over to this region and go upstairs, and maybe here's where my fabricators are, or here's where all of my refineries are. And this alone allows me to kind of start breaking apart how I approach this base build. It's not simply so much just, great, let me just make a cube and let me go to town with it. I can now go, let's say we do this. Bring this across. And cool, now this whole entire region, I could say it's just, that's all cordoned off. And even further, I can create a different roof now for this and break out some walls. Maybe this wall isn't like that anymore. Maybe it comes in. Maybe it does this. Piece picker. That wall maybe comes in like that. God, it's so hard when you do this like with just the ghosts like this, and that's all an outside area. However you want to like determine that. That's like maybe that's a patio out there, whatever it is. And over here, since okay, that's a floating wall, that doesn't make much sense. We'd throw like maybe a center or corner column in here. Corner column. Like, oh, cool. Now there's a column and it makes sense, like structurally. I think it's really easy to get stuck into like the box of it all, but realizing that that box can be broken very easily by just simply cutting out a corner. Remember I talked about quadrants? So this is what I want you to think of, right? Like you've got a quadrant over here. You've got a quadrant here, 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 and here. And if you start to create different modules for those in your head. Like, okay, this quadrant is a staircase. This quadrant is entrance and storage. This has got nothing just yet. And that reason doesn't have anything just yet over here. So you can start to play with these and flex these around. You say to yourself, okay, cool. Well, this has got an opening over here. Let's make a balcony. And that changes how these things all work. Just these little tiny things like that help you break apart your base that would otherwise be a big old cube, and it gives it a little bit of life, right? Like, and I haven't built all this out. One thing is because I don't have the materials on me, but secondly, it's because you can really get a sense for how this is done very easily by just thinking about things as little modular pieces that can be added into one another. Like, for example, you know, maybe you've got one location in your base that is just a set series of stairwells, and that stairwell is then removed from the rest of the base. So what I mean by that is, let's just go ahead and do this. Where are these? There. Piece picker is your friend. Piece picker allows you to do everything quickly without having to worry. You do something like that, and you come into here, and now this can just be pissing you off in the middle of your YouTube video. There. It can just be like, okay, cool. This is steps here to steps here to steps here, but it allows me to then kind of create this column up this center of my base to the side of my base, whatever it is, that I can just simply then walk out of and say, hey, my stairwell to go on, like kind of think of it like a fire escape in a large building. Those are usually their own separate column away from everything else, or they're centrally located, whatever it is. My point remains though, is that that stairwell is accessible from each level, and you could do the same thing there. So that is kind of how you would break apart the monotony of dealing with the Borg cube, dealing with just a simple rectangular base. And let me kind of show some instances here in my base where I was able to do those things. So here's my base right now. It's a constant work in progress. But if I had just built up with the foundation pieces, you can see that these walls would have lacked a lot of character, right? They just would have been that right there. That's the foundation piece. And sometimes you can actually put a wall over foundation pieces. It just depends on what it is. But like, for example, this is a corner foundation piece that I put a corner wall on. So, and it clips through it. It looks kind of wonky, but at least it has a little bit more character. But, you know, I could have just done a single flight of steps up here, but I decided to do like a whole bunch of flanking ones that go back and around on each other. So that is, again, an example. Make sure you use a still suit when you're building, of trying to break things apart. So just walking into my base, I have a whole bunch of room above me that is not being utilized, and that's fine. But I wanted this to have like a big, larger than life entryway that you're just like, holy crap, this has got this big dominating ceiling. You've got so much room to play around with in this game, so definitely play with it. You don't have to have rooms that as soon as you walk in, there's a rooftop. Like if I had just done that, right? Like that is pretty claustrophobic feel. Just immediately there's a roof above your head. So you can have your rooms have 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories to them. I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, 5 technically. 5 technical stories in this grand entry area that allows me to play around and have some fun. Give yourself a lot of room to expand, since you've got so much room to literally expand your base with. We'll talk about expanders in a little bit. But coming over here, here's just what was an empty open room. And you can, again, break apart this area by using stuff like half walls with a chome floor on top to then store things. So you have a good storage situation going on here. You can use these little partitions that are present in every single build set to create little alcoves and croppings. Like this had the small chemical refinery here, and I had 2 different things in this location. But now at the increased size, I just went with one big boy here. But this allows you to kind of create a little bit of visual diversity to these rooms. It's not just simply an open damn room. And you can play around too with the Z axis to things. So you see this big old door? That door is the same thing. I just sunk it down into the ground. So those are examples of taking what you've got with your base and playing around with those little ditties. So if I go over here, that's over there, and then over here, and then over here, and then this. So you can use left control and wheel, and you'll notice that nothing will happen. What you have to do, yep, see, there you go. You have to kind of, that's the wrong thing. You have to delete this ground, and you have to place it at a height that allows it to sink down lower. So I have this big, huge open one, but those look like they're smaller doors. They're not. It's the same door that I've done this to. So to show you how to do those doors, hard cut there, I've created a half wall down here, and we're going to go back to one of those doors. You can use that half wall to build. Now, in this case, I'm going to build it, and then we're going to build it. And there we go. So we've got that door. So that door is no longer that huge one that we had. If I had, I'll play with one here so you can see the juxtaposition. That's the full size one. We're using just a portion of it. Now it does sink it below, so you have to kind of consider that. Because it's sunk there, you have to have some way to hide it. But this gives you a way that you can kind of play around with things like this. And I'll show you other examples in my base of how I've played around with sinking things below where I want to build them on the ground to make for different entrances and different entrance styles. So back here to the grand opening, the big one that the Arrakis has, that the Atreides have, the Harco have their own too. It's a big old mouth, like it's like something out of Chronicles of Riddick. I'm going to come over here to my like cool like council chamber that I've made. And there's the same thing. I sunk it down though, and that opening there is an opening that just, you can place those big doors that we talked about. I just put a wall here to match this same texture. And I've done the same, that's the same thing over here, I just kept it open. So I sunk both of those down below the actual, not foundation line, but below where all the floors are. And I try to, it's wonky, you have to try to get it to snap around to the floors, whatever it is. And then it allows you to create a lot of like really cool stuff, basically using those as the blueprint for the size of the room or whatever. Now you can see that it does look a little wonky. If I take a look out here, I mean, you're not really going to see it, right? I've tried to cover it up as much as I can, but the actual foundation, here's an example, it's sticking out from that big thing in there. So you just kind of have to get creative with trying to hide those things, but playing with dropping things below where they're supposed to be can actually give you a ton of visual diversity, or at least a ton of ways to play around with different ways to use the same thing in the base. Now, just to kind of quickly go back to this one, I got this idea from simply looking at the game. The game has a region like this where it uses those doors sunk down like that, and then it has one standard one in the middle. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So you can see that there's a lot of really fun ways to play around with that kind of stuff. But as a result of it, it gives you a base that has a lot of really cool and interesting kind of alcoves and outcroppings and what have you. So we've talked about building, we've talked about some kind of little cheats you can do as far as placing things. But one thing that's really nice is you have these building tiles that have just passageways. And you've got, you know, your standard doors, and you've got your big door passageways like this, and you've got wide doors. Then you've got the tall doors, right? Well, sometimes you don't want these doors. Oh, cool. Don't build over there. To be closed. You're like, yeah, I kind of just like, I would like this just to be open. So what we're going to do here is hold down F to manage, close automatically, disable it. So it always stays open, just like these do for me. I wanted these to look like passageways, but this is a great way to kind of hack that and make sure you get the most out of every individual door to maybe have a specific style you want or what have you. But using this is a really big crucial tip to creating a lot of different openings in your base. Stability is another really important thing, especially if you're building far away from a cliff face, whatever it is, like I'm doing. The rule for this is you need to have a foundation, and that foundation needs to be planted onto the wall. Onto the floor. Walls will give you some sort of superficial stability, but let me show you how this works. So I'm going to build out 1, 2. You can basically go about 9 steps out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the 10th one will say insufficient stability. Now you can create more stability by using walls or using some form of wedge wall. You can use wedge walls. You can use the special walls that the Atreides have. These things are really, really nice. So you could place something like this right here. Let's build that. You notice how these things have, how this is a lower opacity, or this is a lower opacity than this? It's because this is ineligible to be built. You need to have connecting pieces to this to increase its eligibility. So by placing those, if I go over here again, and we're at 9, this still says insufficient stability. So you can you can push these along as you go to try to give yourself a little bit of stability somewhere down the line. You could place them in the middle over there, and that would give you the stability to keep going. But then it's just a floating fin. But stability is really important to understand, because if you don't understand that concept, you're really going to get frustrated when you're building, especially bases that are out this far from the cliff. Like, look at this. This is all the way out here. I'm using things like that and this to anchor against something. That's why there's a wall here. This gives it this will give it the stability to allow me to go 9 out. And it's not 9 out from this wall point, it's 9 out from this connection point. So there's a lot of really crazy trickery with this, but really it just kind of comes down to making sure you are connected to some sort of wall or foundation that can generate stability 9 tiles away from where you want. You know what's really cool is a free floating pod just like that. This, you can see that there's no walls that are holding that up. It's all pretty much based off of the door entrance. And let's show you how to do that. So right now you can't see it, but if I go into build mode, you can see all of the fake walls that I placed, which will never be visible in the actual game world to create that. So it helps if you have the corner column from the Harkonnen, because it's just kind of easy to use this one. You could use this corner column just as well. You'd be fine to do it. I just kind of like the Harkonnen one for this because it's visually easier for me to like kind of determine things. So we're going to place columns in the corners of where we want each one of those Pentashields to go. So right there, right there, right there. And I want this to be too tall. That's why I'm doing it. I want it to match the top of this. So that's our first move. Then we're going to take flooring and put it on the outside. Okay. Just like when you're in a grocery store and the fucking door won't open. I'm gonna do this. Not have that. Then we're gonna do that. See how I'm placing on the outside of the corner? Okay, dude. I'll wave my hand in front of this Jedi, open the door. There we go. And there we go. I've placed too many there, but still, it'll be fine. That's gonna be a little tricky because I'm at the end of my my land claim, and I knew I would come into this. So we'll see how that works. We'll do that over here too. Over here too. Basically, the premise is you want to basically see how we have the floor here end right there, and how we've got these two pieces. We're basically taking those two pieces and putting them up at the top of the pillar on the outside of where the Pentashield works, because that is going to give us the basis for the roof as well as the walls. So we'll see how this works. This might get a little wonky. This might be an example of sometimes you just can't do things when you're too close to the edge of your claim. So now that we've done that, we're going to go back over here to utilities. And we're going to go to our Pentashields. And we're going to build. So we want these to line up right there. Hold down left click. You don't create. I mean, you can just create the ghost, but sometimes it's harder to build it. So we're going to just to show you how that works though, we'll go over here. It's going to snap. I'm going to snap. I'm just going to tap left click once and that puts it there. Usually I like to hold left click and build it because it sometimes is hard to find the point to build those again, but that's how that works. We want to go around this from the door. This is from a stable anchoring point, basically. Is this going to work? Ooh, it's not going to work. Let me see. We might be able to do it if we go the other way first. There we go. Oh, it worked. Yeah, okay. Let's try this. Yeah, it wants to connect them and it's pissed me off. This is because we're on the edge of this claim, so we can't have that other floor up there. And that other floor gives us the anchoring point for this top region. We'll try if we build this. It might allow us to do it. Because that's like a set thing then at that point. No, it's kind of being funky. That's okay. But you see, though, how this results in... At least you understand why that's not working right. So I can't show it. But this then, by the way, make sure you have the power to run all this. Your base will shut down. This will result in this over here. So then I can have, if I take off the build browser, right? Like all that is completely open. You have all these free Pentashields that are just kind of chilling here. So if someone comes in with an Ornithopter, they can just go ahead and land. Just make sure you set all the permissions properly on each one of these Pentashields. But this is a really awesome way to add a lot of color, or not a lot of color, a lot of variety to your base without having to do the walls just like that. You can still do it that way, but this is a cool way to do it. It's a little trickier and it is a little messier, but it is really, really cool once it's all done. So lighting is very limited. So play around with as many of these Paladin Palace floorings as you can, or the Observer floorings as you can, because it's going to give you a lot of superficial light. Your base is always just going to be super dark. So this helps you to have a ton of light in places that you otherwise would have wanted it, because the light sources, even as it were, you're limited to like 60 at max expansions. This allows you to have more lighting without having to push into that. These don't go against your lighting limit, so try to use them as best you can to give you, like, this is why my bay is almost entirely lit up by those. It's why I used it. You can see them from far away too, so that if I want to, you know, come out here, I can go back and see that they're right there. It's like kind of easy to find my base at that point, which was kind of the intention. Stocking units. Extending your base is huge. Now you need to have the actual Solari on your person or in your base. Mine is all at the bank, so I cannot make these. But there are stocking units, which will go horizontal. They'll basically expand your land out. And then the vertical ones. The vertical ones, I believe the limit is like 5 or 6. And these stocking units, it's 5. So you can expand from, basically think of cardinal directions. You can expand 1 block worth of your fief. So whatever your fief is, either a sub-fief or an advanced sub-fief, that size, north, east, south, or west. And then you can do that 5 times. So you can measure this out with the advanced sub-fief things, just basically making a whole bunch of them up to 3, because you're maxed out at 3, but then just getting a sense for the other 2 as you do that. What you want to do with this, though, is make sure you place these first. You can place these first, it doesn't matter, but my point is this will raise the verticality of all stocking units. You want to do this first so that you can actually stake out the location of your base, and each one of these takes longer and longer to place. At max, to place all 5 plus maybe like 1 or 2 of these, it's like almost 20 minutes. So each one will take a certain amount of time. The first one, I think it's like 14 seconds, and then it's like 30 seconds, and then it's a minute, and then it's a minute and a half, and then it just jumps all the way up to like, it exponentially grows very fast after that. Because it goes from like, oh, just like 3 minutes, no big deal, to 20, and you're like, oh shit. So I say use these first, because then you can plot out the horizontal land you want to have, and then use the vertical ones either as you need them or use them once you've placed everything else. Because like I said, then you'll have a good sense like, hey, I have everything that I want, however I want it. The vertical stocking units will then expand the entirety of what you've created so far. So these are really important. I just quickly am highlighting them, and just to kind of show off really quickly here. Oh, god damn. I have to do this like 40 times in the video. You can quickly kind of, you've seen me do this, but just so you can see it again. This is the parent stocking unit right here. This is the first one I placed. And then I expanded that way and that way to get me over the cliff's edge. And then I expanded this way and that way and over there. So this gives me all the functionality I wanted. And I didn't feel like I was restricted too much by where I'm at. And I said you're expanding it by 5, so your total is 6, right? So this is the parent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 expansions, each one of those squares up in the sky right there. And this is, I think it is 3 vertical expansions that I've used to make myself go very far down and very high up. But it's pretty huge to make sure that you plot out that horizontal land first. After having taken a look at so much stuff in the game, there's one really important thing to keep in mind when it comes to Dune Awakening. Dune Awakening was created alongside a lot of the same development and art direction from the Dune movies that have come out from Denis Villeneuve, or Villeneuve, whatever the fuck, I'm just butchering a name right now. So if you take a look at this, that's in the game. That is the floating Atreides thing. Not so much him, but this is the portion of the windows that are directly in the game. This is the Caladan Palace wall that has the bookcase. These are directly, you can have these exact things in the game. So what's really cool here is that you can actually look at the set design for the Dune movies and get inspiration for your games. I've been rewatching, or for the game, I've been rewatching, oh shit, that was a perfect picture, Dune, and I looked at this specific picture and I was like, dude, that is awesome. And it also kind of shows me we have a lot of like things coming as far as a lot of visual diversity that's probably coming to the game as far as different decisions, different pieces. Like I could see them adding like Kaladin walling that has these kind of bas reliefs on them, or this stuff you see up here, right, where it kind of gives you a little bit of a curve, or different. I mean, this looks like maybe the base style of roof, the very not the chome, but the other one's like more sandstone looking. Take a look at this. This is what the flooring looks like underneath some of the Kaladin stuff. So you can see that there's a lot of direct ripping from the movie because it was deliberately designed that way. So take a look at a lot of the Dune movie set design, especially if you're even doing a Harco base. You can get a lot of really cool inspiration by scrubbing through a lot of this. This is, if you could make that entire room, that carpet is in the game. Everything in this is in the game. You can make that entire picture in the game by utilizing the in-game's assets. Here's another Harco base that you could do. You could do that exact same thing. So there's a lot of inspirations you can find within the game for sure, but just simply taking a look at the set design, what some of these guys did for the set design for Dune. You could look at Dune Prophecy. A lot of the actual front of my base was inspired by the front of the Imperial Palace in Dune Prophecy. So take a look at a lot of these. A lot of really good art inspiration in here that gives you an idea of how you can maybe form your base. And what's nice about it too is you're not trying to jerry rig anything that you've got. You have existing templates or existing wall pieces that can match a lot of this stuff. So this was all made in conjunction with the art directors from this movie. So that's why these things match like a 1-to-1. If you rewatch Dune 1, I can't find a picture of it here. Some of the very first shots with Paul show him like eating breakfast. And a lot of the pieces from the Atreides build set are just used right in that shot right there. You're like, holy crap. Apparently it's Denis Villeneuve. I fucked that up. I'm live streaming this portion of it, but I mean, that is just like spot on. So you can have a lot of fun, get some inspiration, and I think it'll really help you when you are building your base out in Dune. Decorations really add a lot of life to a base. They don't need to be anything crazy. Like I was talking about those Chome books. Well, there they are right there. They look really cool. They have the cool little like blue LEDs in them. These are the Atreides books. These are the Harco books. So they add a lot of character to what you're building in the way that you're building it, right? This is mainly an Atreides base. So I've barely used any Chome stuff unless it makes sense. Even using things like plants. These are another source of light. So you've come over here. There's a little bit of light. I put an actual thing there, but these actually have little projectors in them. Again, over here. But if you spend some time just kind of dropping random crap, it makes a room kind of come together. I'm not a really good interior decorator. Like, who has a dining room in their bedroom with a loft? You know, like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a 37-year-old gamer. I have a fucking plush of a World of Warcraft thing in my room. So what do I know about interior decoration? But my point is that just dropping little things here and there really does help. I'll tell you about carpets though. Put the carpet down first. If you put the furniture down, you cannot put the carpet underneath it. Even though that sounds like a duh thing, but in video games, usually you can, right? So even using these things is a lot of fun. It allows you to really kind of have this whole area feel alive. Like if I come over here to where all my fabricators are, I've used a lot more Chome stuff, kind of fits into the theme of it. I've used a lot of these paintings to kind of give the place a little more of a lived in look. And I did these things like piecemeal over time. I was like, it's kind of like I would like, this is another example. Like this is like boring and open right here. I have to change this. So I'm either going to have to make more rooms into it or use furniture to create some sort of visual break in all of the locations over here, right? Like I just got all of that, the Harco stuff. Like, so is there anything cool in there? Like, oh man, what are these wall partitions? What do they look like? Not enough materials. That's what they look like. So you can use these individual things to give you a little bit like, oh, that's kind of nice. You can put that right there. Like now that staircase kind of has a little bit more going for it. I don't think you can actually put that there. I guess, no, not on the sport. Could just drop that right there or something like that. But again, these are ways that you can add a little bit. And it's kind of what I've done. There's a lot of cool rules that I've broken with that in here. This is this big long ass table. I have to fix that. I just saw that and it's pissing me off now. This is a bunch of these. This is the Atreides bench, I think it is. Yeah, Atreides desk. It's a bunch of Atreides desks that I've placed in a row. And I didn't even get that idea myself. I saw a piece of actual art that the game uses, and I just said, okay, that's what I'll do then. And then I took this actual, it's underneath there. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. I used that, and I just used the control wheel and slid it down underneath and placed it there. So you can break the rule with the furniture a little bit easier than you can with a lot of other pieces, or use things that have a lot of really similar silhouettes to create a cattywampus table like that. And I can't unsee it. But use the decoration to your advantage. Have some fun with it, right? Like the way we created those lights and put those lights there. You can't see it, but there's supposed to be banners all over this thing, but who wants to go farm agave seeds? They're the rarest damn thing in this fucking game. But my point remains, have fun. Play around with those decorations. Try to use them in little spots and try to not have it be so uniform, right? Like kind of just slap stuff over here, and it kind of feels like, hey, this is someone at a reception who's just kind of disheveled and left. So use those things to break up locations rather than having to use actual buildings to do so. Now, one of my final points is kind of enjoying or appreciating the silhouette of your base, right? So my base, I really like it. There's some things I really want to change. Like I wish I'd kind of made this entryway a little more, well, I wish it was taller. I wish it was grander. I wish it was more verbose, because it's all kind of the same level across the board, even though I can go really far down here, as you can see. And I'm still kind of messing around with it down here. I wanted to have some sort of cool center column of support coming up. So there's one coming up here, but I can go pretty much all the way down. Even further because of those vertical expansions. So this allows you to kind of really play around with stuff, right? Like, okay, you've made the bulk of your base. The bulk of your base exists in one location. Do you want it to only exist there? Well, how is it supported? Well, how is it staying up? Stuff like that. That's why I've tried to put as much stuff coming out from the wall and supporting it, because A, that's loreful, right? A lot of the buildings in Dune are built into the landscape. So have some fun with that, right? It doesn't need to be very rigid. It can be very fun and dynamic. And I just saw something that's different on one side than the other, and it pisses me off. And bases are very much a constant work in progress, as you can see from my little ornithopter landing pods, from my other pieces of my base are just kind of not quite done. But play around with these things. Appreciate that silhouette, because it's the first thing you see on the horizon as you come back to your base. And it's kind of a really cool experience if you really like what you're coming home to. And that comes with time. It comes with time of like crafting little pieces of it. When I first started this, I had like a little block over there, and that was my temporary base, and that was it. Then I built this first, and then I built this opening area, and then I built this, and then I built the bay down here. And then I built that, and I thought I was done with the base. Then on stream one day, I went into a 4-hour tirade of building out this cool little center. And then I built these individual pods. This doesn't need to be done all in one day. Take your time, take some inspiration, look at a lot of the things online, look at other houses. Like when I wanted to do a lot of my bays for my ornithopters, I saw my neighbor over here. He had a lot of really cool bays that he had done here. I'm like, damn, this is cool. Like a bunch of like shoe boxes for ornithopters just come out all at once, like a fleet. So play around with different ideas. Have fun with this. You don't need to be so rigid. And even if you do create something, don't be afraid to completely destroy it. It's so quick to build in this game. You can just simply wipe it clean and go and make something else. So hopefully this gives you some inspiration on how to approach your base building in Dune Awakening. This isn't the most comprehensive guide where I show you how to do every little thing. I wanted more to inspire you so that you could do it on your own terms, how you wanted. If you have any big tips or anything like that, go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below on how you have built your bases out. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.